What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Dogs and Hogs. I'm Bobby Andrews, Russ Tanner. We're going to have Terrence Edwards join us here in a few minutes. But man, Russ, we are not at Wire Park. Obviously, we're doing this one online. Thanksgiving, is upon us. It's coming up tomorrow. So figured, we'll do it on StreamYard here.
I like it,
So
man.
yeah, hey, not the same. It's not the same as it usually is, It's but we do what we got to do to get the show in. So yeah,
Well,
as always, guys, thank you for tuning in. Leave comments, ask us questions when Terrence joins us. Feel free to ask him whatever. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, whatever. We'll try and get to your questions as soon as possible. So
yeah, we'll give Terrence a hard time. He's supposed to be on with us at 8. I don't know where he's at. I always like those receivers, man. Like they're on their own time, but he's gracious. Hopefully, he joins on a little bit, and we can get a few questions in for one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, absolutely.
Russ, go ahead.
A couple weeks ago, we talked about. We'll go ahead and get this out of the way. We haven't talked about it since it happened, but Jimbo Fisher was fired from Texas A&M. A couple weeks ago, we talked. You brought up the question: Billy Napier or Jimbo? Who's on the hottest seat? I said it was Jimbo Fisher. And
I don't remember you saying that, but all right, we'll get the tape.
I thought I did. Listen, it was only because of his contract that it was questionable. People were questioning whether or not he was going to be able to, whether Texas A&M was going to eat that money, and obviously the donors and whoever's on the board was willing to do that. I mean, what are your opinions on that situation, Texas A&M?
Well, I mean, the only reason that we thought he may not get let go was because of the contract, 75, 76 million, whatever it is, to walk away. But if you look at his numbers, they've been mediocre at best, and he's been one of the highest paid dudes in the SEC. And with the arms race now to the top of college football, and every year they don't make a change and remain mediocre, the gap between A&M and Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, etc., grows wider and wider. And the timing may seem funny, but now you got to remember the transfer portal opens up in about 2 or 3 weeks. An early signing period, man. Schools cannot afford to wait anymore until after the season because they have to sign the majority of their class in December. That's when signing day is now. So they have to make a move, try to bring somebody in to be able to tell these recruits, we're going to bring in somebody. It's going to be a big name. You're going to be excited. We're going to do all the things, aggressive on defense, throw the ball on offense. They don't know who they're going to hire, but they're going to say it. They can't afford to wait, though, because the gap grows wider and wider. And, I had one of our coaches, if Terrence could come on here, we'd ask him about Coach John Eason, was the receivers coach when we were at Georgia. And he told me one time, he said, Mr. Tanner, this here's the SEC. This is a bottom line business, son. And Jimbo found out. So it's wild times, brother. It is wild times in college football.
Yeah, it's definitely some interesting times for sure with all this NIL money and everything going on. But we'll get Terrence's opinion here in a minute. He looks like he's about to tune in with us here.
There he comes. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we'll add him here as soon as he gets settled in. But I certainly want to hear his opinion on this Jimbo Fisher situation. So now joining us, Terrence Edwards, wide receiver from UGA, also 2013 or until 2013 led, was it the SEC in receiving yards, correct? Or
correct.
Was it all the SEC or was it all college football?
No, I was all-time leading in the SEC.
All-time.
Look, and it's hard to imagine somebody from Tyndall, Georgia, who ain't big as being good at catching it. But man, you got one of the all-time greats for not only Georgia football but in the SEC jumping on with us tonight. My man Terrence Edwards. I sent him a message. He came on a really short notice. So all those things we said about him earlier really bad about not being on an 8. We take them all back. Terrence is on with us. But yeah, Washington County, the Golden Hawk, Tyndall, Georgia, and here we are.
Everyone know that, our two towns are very close. So, we used to rough up Russ in high school. I think he probably beat us one time, but I never got opportunity. Never got the opportunity to play Johnson County, but our towns are neighbors, so we are true neighbors.
Yeah, and it's funny growing up because I had family that went to Washington County. My cousin Matt, my cousin Rock,
Right.
all went up there. So for me, growing up in the early to mid '90s, we went and watched a lot of Washington County football. And this hurts me to say it because I don't like Washington County. I'm a Johnson County man. But, man, those were the best high school football teams I ever saw. You know, you look at Terrence, you look at his older brother, Robert. You had the best high school football player I ever saw was Takeo Spikes, Chris Edwards. They had just the Miller boys that came up here. Like, they had player after player after player. And that was what really set, in my mind, what college football was supposed to be like, going to the House of Pain in Washington County. So, yeah, that's it, man. Terrence Edwards on the show, baby.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for tuning in. Got a couple fans in here. The Dog Father, shout out to TE. Kyle Dawgs says Terrence was the height of my childhood, DGD. So definitely got some fans tuning in. Terrence, obviously out of University of Georgia, went undrafted, stayed local, went to the Falcons as an undrafted free agent. Talk about that a little bit, and then obviously going into you ended up being pretty much a star in the Canadian Football League. Talk about that a little bit.
Right, you're right. I'm not gonna sit here and sugarcoat. I was very disappointed for not getting drafted. I thought for what I did in college in that league that I was worthy of getting drafted. But sometimes things don't go your way in football, and that's one thing that I love about football is how do you handle adversity? And I had opportunity to go and play for the Atlanta Falcons, and I ended up making the team as an undrafted free agent, beating out some of the draft picks that they drafted that year. My second year, I ended up tearing my growing muscle off the bone, so I was on IR that year and didn't re-sign back, and I went to Canada and never came back.
There he is. He was a Canadian All-Star several times. So yeah, man, that's awesome. T, why'd you pick Georgia, man? Like, why was that where you went? Because you think about like your brother obviously went there, but you got Takeo went to Auburn, Demetrius Stevens went to Florida State. You had guys all over. Why was Georgia your pick?
So a lot of people don't know Auburn actually liked to won out on my services. Jimbo Fisher was the offensive coordinator at the time, with Terry Bowden was the head coach, and if people don't know, I was a quarterback in high school. Russ, you know this, and I didn't play receiver until I stepped on campus at Georgia. So I'm a quarterback at heart, and Auburn was willing to allow me to play quarterback. That's what they recruited me as a quarterback. But Georgia was what my heart was, and I got an opportunity to see and watch Hines Ward play the position that Coach Dunning recruited me at. And it was kind of a do-it-all type of athlete. It's playing quarterback, front of backfield, reverses. Like, he was just going to put me in position to touch the ball in all type of spots on the field. And Hines was graduating, and I was coming in. I just saw myself fulfilling that role. And also my goal was to play in the pros. And at the point in time, there wasn't a lot of 6 feet, 160-pound quarterbacks running around. So I just thought the best opportunity for me to fulfill a lifelong dream of playing in the NFL was switching to receiver. And Coach Dunn and them didn't really have to show me a lot because Hines was already in the position that they was going to play me at. So I saw everything that it did with him. So that was kind of the main reason. But Georgia was always it for me. The feeling that I got for my brother being there and the way they treated me, and I knew everything about Athens. I already knew the spots in Athens. I knew the players. I knew everything about Athens because of coming up with my brother. But Auburn made it tough on them.
So, T, could you imagine sitting here? What's the date, Bobby? 22nd, day before Thanksgiving. Could you imagine sitting here right now with an orange tee on that jacket you got on?
No, I couldn't imagine. But hey, you think about it. I tell people this all the time. If NIL was a thing when it was coming out, if Georgia wasn't up to pay, I don't know where I would be. Because I like these kids. I'm going where the money was at the time, man. I can't blame these 18-year-old kids for going. If somebody offering little Terrence from Tennessee, Georgia, $300,000, that's a lot of money, more than probably anybody in my family have seen in their lifetime. Well, fortunately, my brother was drafted that year, but I still would have probably went where the money was. So But I'm glad that I picked the school that I picked. I love it. My career went the way that I would like for it to go. But man, it's tough on these kids these days.
It's interesting. There was a Coach Rick had a charity bowling tournament a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they had some former players there, some current players there, just kind of hanging out. And I'm not going to say who it was because it doesn't matter. But I was talking to one of the guys on the team now, who's a younger guy, freshman, redshirt freshman type guy. And I was just asking him. I was like, man, what's it like for you guys with the NIL and the transfer portal? And he made a statement to me that it sounded to me like he's still being recruited. And he said, man, right now I'm just focused on Georgia. And that was just such a mind-blowing thing for me. Somebody who's on scholarship at Georgia, on the team. I think he could probably get some reps, some special teams, other stuff like that, in line to be one of the guys in the next few years. And when I asked him about it, he's like, man, right now I'm just focused on Georgia. And I heard him say it. I was like, man, these guys are still considering their options when they get to college. And that's not a Georgia thing. That's not an Alabama thing. That's a college football thing.
Yep.
Because you got guys, the transfer portal opens in 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's early December. You got guys on Georgia that are starters and that are top end backups that are maybe in the 2 deep that are going to leave because people are going to pay them a lot of money to come and play. You'll get guys that are say a backup tight end at Georgia. Well, guess what? He starts at 95% of the colleges across the country.
Right.
If a team needs a guy, then they're going to try to throw money at him and get him. So it's a different world we live in.
Right. One of the things that Kirby told me one time that he was like, Terrence, it's a different world that he has to re-recruit the players on his own team. Like, how do you have to convince them to stay along with recruiting the high school kids? You have to re-recruit the players that is already signed on your team. And it's just a different time, different place. There are some good and bad with NIL and Porter, in my opinion, but both of them can be very beneficial to players. And sometimes there's good opportunities where players can take advantage of those opportunities. I just think of like Dominique Blaylock. That is what like the Porter was intended for.
100%. 100%. We play Tech this week. We'll get to Tech later in the show. It's fun to talk about Tech right now. But, they got Brent Cedar, tight end, and Don Blaylock. 2 guys that were in the rotation at Georgia, played at Georgia. They go to Tech, and they're the man. And for guys that want to have a shot at making it to the next level, like, you understand. And I don't hold any ill will towards Don Blaylock. I end up holding ill will towards, and I say ill will lightly because I don't hate the kid, but like A.D. Mitchell and Terrence coach Jermaine Burton, guys like that who are still going to be players at Georgia that leave. Like, you get a little aggravated as a fan for that. But, guys like Don Blaylock, that's why the portal was created, as Terrence said. So, I think it's interesting then you flip to the Tennessee game for a second with that. And I'm interested to hear Terrence's take on this. If you look at Georgia's recruiting, one place they've been kind of knocked the last few years is they're not recruiting what the experts consider that high-end wide receiver very much. 1 or 2 guys. And Terrence Edwards Wide Receiver Academy in Georgia, one of the best personal coaches of wide receivers in America. So y'all go check him out with that. Plug him real quick there. But, he's coached some of the high-end guys, worked with them. But you look at Georgia right now. All right, let's go around the circle. First person that cannot answer somebody that could catch a pass for Georgia loses. I'll start. Brock Bowers. Terrence.
Glad McConkey.
Who can't catch a pass?
Yeah. Who are
Rara Thomas.
There you go. Marcus Rosemy-Jackson.
Dom.
I'm gonna say Kendall Milton.
Oscar Delp.
That's my next one. Bale.
Oh, that was a good one. Dom Lovett.
He already said Dom Lovett.
Did he?
You lost. Yeah, he said Dom. That's who he got. But we get the point, right? You got Arian Smith still in there. I mean, you've got just almost none of those guys other than Brock Bowers. Like, Brock is the dude. But the rest of those guys, I don't know who's going to be a high draft pick for them. But Carson Beck is throwing the ball to 8 or 10 guys. Like, Terrence, what's it like in that wide receiver room when you know the ball's coming, but you're not getting 12, 14 balls a game?
Right. But that's the thing about it, that Kirby is able to get guys to understand their role within the system. I hear all the time on social media that Georgia do not throw to receivers, and if you just look at the stats, that's not the case. We just not having the 1,000-yard receivers. Small plug. I'm the only 1,000-yard receiver still in Georgia history. Brock was headed that way, and unfortunately, he came down with an injury. But the system that we have that I love is you cannot focus on one guy. Yes, Brock is that guy, but on the outside of the receiving core, you just can't focus on we have to stop this one guy. And everyone eats. And I really enjoy watching, Dom, Rara, Arian, Ladd, Marcus. Like those are a lot of guys that going out catching 3 or 4 passes a game and moving the chains. And I love it as a receiver. I love it and I think that was probably some of the reasons some of the other guys left is they didn't want to rotate as much. But that is Kirby's thing on offensively and defense, that we're going to play and stay fresh and play players that wants to buy in. And I tell people all the time, I love Marcus Roman Saint. I love him because he came as a high rated wide receiver, but he has bided his time. He's been a team player. And just look at him now. He's one of the team leaders of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you look at Ladd McConkey. Ladd is a guy who's been banged up some, but he opened the offense up. But Ladd's been out. It's hurt a little bit. But then you see all those guys step up, man. Dylan Bell. I mean, Terrence talking about earlier, some of the roles Coach Dunn used him, man. Kind of that Hines Ward was in the same role. I mean, if I had a player comp for Dylan Bell, to me, it's Hines Ward. I mean, for the type of stuff he does. The dude is throwing touchdowns. He's catching touchdowns. He's ran touchdowns this year. And, I mean, you got to stinking love seeing a kid like that go off up in Neyland Stadium. So I went to the game, got to go. And I love playing Tennessee Stadium, by the way, because it's hostile. They do a good job with all the pageantry of college football, all the tradition. It's cool. Say what you want to say. It's cool. But they're opening play. That dude went 75 yards to the house. I have never been in an environment as loud as Neyland Stadium was right there. It was as loud as the Hobnail boot when Travis Stevens
Hey, I was just about to say, you wasn't there then, was you, Roy?
I redshirted. I was there. I was a red shirt.
That was loud. That was loud.
So it was that loud in the stadium. You couldn't hear anything. And then when we come out on offense, they are frothing at the mouth. I mean, those Tennessee fans are going nuts, and rightfully so, right? This is a big-time game. But, sheesh, Carson Beck is the coolest cat you have ever seen back there.
Right.
And he just starts picking them apart. And we got a field goal on the first drive, but it was just like a snowball, 24 in a row. And they could do nothing about it, man. Like, I love watching this team after they get past the first drive on defense, which we suck on that first drive. Stink.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right.
We don't say suck at our house. They stink. I don't know why. But after that, man, it was an absolute beatdown on Rocky Top.
Yeah, you
go
ahead, Terrence.
Go ahead.
So I'm giving that is one thing that I love about this team, Russ. That I kind of look at it like I don't want the team to score on their opening possession. I wish we wouldn't. But if you just look at the games and the way we play and how calm and cool that the team is, even when we're tied at halftime with Auburn or we're down at South Carolina. And just like I think Javon Bullock said that no one flinched. That's what this team has been about this year, not flinching when things get tough. And I just think that is a microcosm of how Kirby have set a standard with this Georgia program that it doesn't matter the score at the time. We're going to just play Georgia football and continue just chopping wood, just as it would say. But I haven't seen any kind of guys just over like the game is over. I never ever seen them flinch, and that's really a good quote by Javon. Like, we didn't flinch because we've been in that situation, and I think that is a microcosm of the quarterback because he plays cool, calm, and collective, and nothing bothers him. And that's kind of the identity that this team has faced. And I love it because there's going to be time where it may be in the SEC championship game where we're down late, or maybe in the college football playoff that we're down late, and this team's we've been here before, and it's not uncharted territory, and they're not going to panic and freak out.
and it's interesting the amount of guys that Georgia's playing right now too, and we talked about it. We already talked about it. The job Kirby's doing to getting those guys to buy in is crazy. You look at the two most obvious groups to me, because on defense those guys are used to rotating. D line, linebackers, DBs, they all rotate because they have to run a ton during the game. But on offense, for the receivers to rotate like they do, the running backs rotate like they do, and daggum, Tate Ratledge, who's been one of our best offensive linemen all year, went down in the first half of the game. And all of a sudden, you don't even realize he's out because Michael Morris comes in, Dylan Fairchild comes in, Xavier Truss comes in. They've been rolling 7 and 8 deep across the front. And by the way, if you go back and watch the game, I think Roddy tweeted this sometime during it. Tate Ratledge was murdering dudes. He was murking people all across the front. But he goes out. Then I looked at Dylan Fairchild. Like Dylan Fairchild, I'm telling y'all, I know you pretty boys don't watch the line. All right. I'm telling y'all, watch that dude. I don't know how good he is, but he's the nasty on the O-line right now. Like he tries to get people. If you're standing around the pile, he's coming. If there's a scuffle breaks out, he's jumping in. Like he's that dude you want fighting for you at guard. I mean, that's just what you want. So I think the depth of the team has been enormous. And then just the attitude from where they're at. Did y'all see the it's not a hype video, but like the highlight video they did where Rocky Top played in the background? Did y'all see that?
Yes, I saw it today. That was unbelievable. That's one of the best videos I've seen. And speaking of Dylan Fairchild, I go back to he was a 2-time state champion wrestler. So that is kind of his background is he just like you say he's a brawler. So it goes back to his wrestling background.
And you talked about Tate Ratledge. Did you see the alley-oop block that I think it was Mims who blocked him into Tate and then Tate slammed him. Yeah, that was
that's what I was talking about where he murdered a dude because they ran a stun up front. The defense tackle tried to do one of these numbers right here, and Mims caught him, smashed him, and Tate just caught him one hand and like y'all remember? I was a WWF wrestling guy. Then I went to WCW. When the Undertaker come in and get him and just choke slam him. I mean, that's what it looked like to me. So I loved watching it, man. So the O-line, we are now a passing team that passes to open up the run game. But the O-line is keeping Carson Beck so clean in the pocket. He can stand there. And all that we did it earlier, right? We named like 11 guys that catch passes. And if you give Carson Beck time, he has proven right now, by the way, that he will find the open guy. I think I saw he's the first guy ever to start, I think his first 8 or 9 games, whatever it is, and have over 250 yards passing in every single one he's been a part of. So as hard as it is to be underrated as the quarterback for the number 1 team in the country, Carson Beck is underrated right now.
Right. So we had at Milton High School, I coach at Milton High School, and we had a practice today because we're still in the playoffs and we're going to play Colquitt on Friday. And one of a Milton alums came back and spoke today to the team. And he's I don't know if he's a starting tackle for Georgia Tech, but he's one of the Georgia Tech offensive linemen. Nice kid. And I'm just sitting there thinking about how he looked. Like he is 6'2", 3-ish, 300 pounds maybe. I was like, just the way that Kirby has recruited, he does not look like a Georgia O-line.
No.
Like, those guys are humongous. And you just look at the recruiting classes that he has coming up with the O-line. They are 6'6" and taller.
Every one of them.
Russ, I don't know if you've been a Georgia Bulldog in this day and time. And I don't know if I would have been either the way Kirby is recruiting at those positions.
Well, you were too big time of a receiver for Kirby to sign. But maybe he would take you as an athlete, though. Yeah, I wouldn't. Kirby actually, the last few times I've seen him, if I've said anything to him about it, I can't say exactly what Kirby said to me because there's kids that watch this show, but he was very clear that I would not have been recruited anymore. I'm 6'3", 295, not that fast, not that strong. If you look at Amaris Mims, that is one of the biggest men I've ever seen.
Yes. I don't know Kirby would have recruited Kirby at this time.
No, he wouldn't have.
What was Peyton Manning saying? He was interviewed when he was talking to Kirby, and they were saying when Tennessee played UGA, they would Peyton made a joke that he would always throw to whatever side of the ball or whatever side of the field that Kirby was on or something like that. He made a joke about that in an interview or something. So
Well,
Yeah,
jokes on him now because the best thing Peyton saw was Dolly Parton singing. She wasn't even that good on Saturday, and I love Dolly Parton. She just couldn't hear.
Yeah.
But I got a question for Terrence too, and it's specific to the game. And we have not discussed any of this, so forgive me if it messes up. So I had a thought with this from watching it, not an original thought, but one of the things, if you watch what Bobo does on offense, there's a whole lot of pre-snap motion. And sometimes there's motion where they'll motion here, then right back across. Terrence, what does motion as a receiver and a quarterback? And my question is, the amount of timing right now between Carson Beck as receivers is the best I've ever seen. He's throwing the ball before they come out of their breaks. The routes are money, they're crisp, and the rhythm is there. When you see that pre-snap motion as a receiver and a quarterback, like what does that do for you? Like what's the purpose of some of that motion?
For one, it gives you an indicator if it's man or zone. So if the man runs with you, a lot of times it's zone. It's not 100% exact, but that's what's kind of indicated. Also give you another indicator if you're gonna check, because in college football, if you go from two by two, that's two receivers on each side. You motion across and make it 3-by-1. There's a whole different check. So you're kind of get the defense moving and talking. That also could kind of distort their communication. It might have lack of communication. So that's one thing. But most of the time, just motion is giving you a kind of pre-snap read of what the defense is in, and that is big. That's why we do a lot of motion. It gives Carson a lot of information. That's why he's hitting like 73% of his passes, because he really understands the game plan. He really understands reading defenses.
Who do you look back on through your time as a receiver and remember a time with a specific quarterback where you're like, man, we were just in rhythm? I mean, if the safety was here and I broke this way or that way, the ball was coming, we're on the same page. I mean, do you ever remember that being something that happened?
I'm gonna tell you one game. It was two games. One game we lost and one game that we won. Corey Phillips. We played Kentucky in Kentucky, and we threw for like 400 yards. We was going back and forth with Hefty Lefty, and I think that game I may have had 100. Damian may have had 100. So it was just doesn't matter what coverage they was in. Corey was on fire. Then we played Georgia Tech. I think that same year. I think Corey probably had back-to-back 400-yard passing games, but we ended up losing the game against Tech. But Corey was just on fire, and it doesn't matter what they did on defense. Corey would just pick them apart, and then David came and started the next year. But those two games, where I specifically remember where we couldn't be stopped, ended up winning one game and losing one game, but offensively we threw for over 400 yards both games.
I remember Corey Phillips going in 02, 03 with Coach Rick. We were beating somebody. It was mop-up duty. Corey's going in. And Coach Rick calls just, power to the right, run 24 something. Corey makes it about to the numbers, looks back and yells at Coach Rick, I'm checking to the bomb. Keep running. He's just like, screw it, man. Like, we're letting it ride right now. So, yeah.
Right.
That's it. All right, Bobby, hit us with something, man.
Yeah, Carson Beck looked really good, 24 for 30 for 298 yards and 3 touchdowns. And, you guys talked about moving the ball well, finding a whole bunch of different receivers. Ladd McConkey was not in this one, or he was for 3 snaps, and then he didn't play, I don't think, any of the other snaps. There's not really a question there. It's more just like this offense has been really impressive. Was this offense really impressive, or was the Tennessee defense a little underwhelming? I mean, what were expectations going into this Tennessee game?
Well, I mean, the expectation was for Georgia to do exactly what they did. In the past years, for some reason, this team just never seems quite as dominant in any phase of the game. But it's a surgical beatdown every team we played so far. It's just we run the ball when we want to. We throw the ball when we want to. Third down, Georgia's like 60% on third downs this year. They're one of the top teams in the country in red zone efficiency and scoring touchdowns. So they do – we've already talked about it a couple of times, so I won't spend a ton of time. But it's that no-flinch mentality. Like, they just don't get worried about it. And Carson Beck, I'm as confident in Carson Beck throwing the football right now as I can ever remember a time as a Georgia fan watching Georgia. I mean, he finds an open guy, and he puts the ball on the money. And the competition that's happening, especially in the receiver room, it's all of them. But in the receiver room right now, if you don't run good routes and catch the ball, you're coming out. That's just the way it is. There's somebody else ready to go in. So they practice so hard with such a high level of there's so much pressure every time they have to perform. And man, right now they're answering the bell almost to a man. Every guy is answering the bell, and it is so fun to watch.
So one of the things Brendan Adams asked me, I'm on Brendan Adams' show every Thursday at 10:30, and he was like, Terrence, like, what do they have to play for? Like, they already wrapped up the East. I'm like, they have a lot to play for. The winning streak is one. Still trying to get in the college football playoff is two. Like, we're not completely locked in for that yet.
No.
Just playing Georgia football in the standard is another one, and it is so impressive the way that Kirby get his guys to play so hard every Saturday. And Russ, you know this is even for some of the games that you know you're going to win. It's just hard getting up for every Saturday when it's not Tennessee or not Florida or not Auburn. It's hard getting up for those games, and you see the intensity that these guys play with, that they want to go out and dominate each game, and that's hard to do. And give you a funny story on Ladd, since you talked about Ladd only playing 3 plays. Ladd growing up in Northeast Georgia, he's a big Tennessee fan growing up, and he wanted to go play at Tennessee. And imagine Tennessee telling you you're not good enough to play at our school, and now Ladd is probably going to be a second-round pick, in April's draft. That shows you the recruiting department that we have at Georgia, the eyeball test. Everything is not about the metrics of a college player. It's about eyeball. Can this guy play football? And Ladd McConkey is the one that they saw, that I saw early. I'm gonna pat myself on the back. I'm one of the guys that Ladd is gonna be a player. He started training with me his senior year in high school, and I just saw something in him that recruiting services just don't see. He had the heart, he had the natural hands, and he had the ability to want to learn. And going up there watching, scrimmages, he's always making plays. And even before anyone really knew who Ladd was, I kept going on Brendan Adams' show in Dog Nation, just saying, Ladd is going to have a role on this team. And I kept saying it, and by golly, this guy is now going to be drafted at some point. So that's a testament of the development that we have right now, and the foresight to see things that others don't.
Yeah,
I love to watch Ladd. I'm sorry, I'll be quick on this. I love to watch Ladd run routes because he absolutely cooks dudes on the outside. And I mean, you see this little skinny white boy. That Coach 30 guy on Twitter said he has the second whitest name in the country, and he's out there just absolutely cooking DBs with his routes. He's so quick, so precise. I mean, he is a joy to watch run routes.
Yeah, it was cool to see Ladd McConkey, Tate Ratledge, Zion Logue, 3 guys who were, Zion not as big of a Tennessee fan, but, Tate Ratledge, it was almost like a troll for Tennessee a little bit there, having Ladd, Zion grew up in Lebanon, Tennessee, so he's a Tennessee guy as well. But I just thought that was fun thing to note, as they were all captains for that game. So
we've been spoiled by how good this team is. It's hard to win in Neyland Stadium, dude. They had the 3rd longest home win streak in the country. I mean, Terrence played there 2 or 3 times. I played there 2 or 3 times. It's hard to go in there and win. It's loud. It's hostile. It's a hard place to operate. And I don't think we appreciate the job this team is doing because we're beating teams down so often. But, yeah, man, it's special for those guys to be the captains. Yeah. It's special to be on the cusp of breaking the SEC longest winning streak. I think we'll tie it if we beat Tech this week, if I'm not mistaken.
We will.
Yeah, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Somebody, where our commenters at? We usually got a couple of fact checkers comment and tell us where I'm wrong on stuff. But yeah, it's awesome, man. Like, it is awesome. What a win! What a win!
Yeah. So, yeah, final score was 38-10. After the first touchdown run, first play of the game for Tennessee, it was pretty. The scoring was pretty limited. Kudos to the defense. Shout out to Daryl Huckabee. He said tied it Saturday.
No, there it is.
To our viewers.
Break it with Tech. And you talk about what do we have to, and I guess we pivot towards Tech here. I do have something else to say about Tennessee, though.
I have something. I was going to talk about the defense. Talk about how well the defense played. Tyke had a really good play. Somebody brought up Tanner Shane here. He said, notice number 44 on D-line against Tennessee. That's Jordan Hall. He's a freshman, I believe, this year. And
he's another kid who is freaking enormous, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he's got 3
nickname is Big Baby.
44. Yeah. I mean,
I think he's the next one. I watched him in high school. I think he's the next one to be that dominant D line. I can't wait to see him and Jared, the big D tackle from North Carolina as well. I think those two can be not. And don't kill me for saying this, but I think those two could be the next dominant. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say
it.
I'm not gonna say it.
Say it.
I'm not gonna say Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, but they can be disruptive as those guys was. At their time.
I was where I was sitting Saturday. Jalen Walker, outside linebacker for us. His folks were sitting right in front. Who's from North Carolina. We're talking about him, and I was telling how much I love watching that kid play. And they were talking about the kid. Now I'm already blanking on his name. The kid from North Carolina, Jarrett. That dude. How about this? He made the North Carolina State Finals in the 100 meters in the track from North Carolina. He ran like an 11,600 meters, and he weighs 320 pounds. I mean, that is scary. But you talk about that. Tyke Smith made a ton of plays, and I'm gonna tell you, man. Like, don't kill me for saying this. Kamari Lassiter may be the best cover corner we've had since Kirby's been at Georgia.
He's been phenomenal.
He is locking people down right now. So I love watching Kamari Lassiter. And then the safety between Bullard, Tyke Smith, Malachi Starks, like they've been the best. That's been the best unit on this team all year long. So, I don't know. It's stupid talent is what it is.
I'm gonna say this. I think I didn't. Older fans don't kill me for this because we know the history of Warner. What was his first name? All-American.
Scott Warner.
Scott Warner. And I didn't watch Scott Warner play, so I'm not going to sit here and say I did. But Malachi Starks probably will go down as probably the most talented safety we have had. I know we had Greg Blue, we had Thomas back there, but just for a pure safety, I think Malachi Starks should probably go down, in my opinion, as the best safety that I've seen play in Georgia history. I didn't watch Scott Warner. I know his history. I know what he did in the Georgia uniform. But I think Malachi Starks should probably go down as the best safety we have ever had in Georgia history.
I mean, it gets old laying superlatives on this team, but you have to. And we talk about offense and defense, but let's just be real quick. Terry Hogue, that's a good name. Yeah, Terry Hogue.
A couple people are saying him.
We didn't get to see Terry Hogue, but we know he's great. We're not knocking those old guys. Jake Scott, all of them, we know. But Malachi is the dude. He really is.
Yeah.
We talk about offense, talk about defense, but man, the darn special teams guys right now. Jared Zirkle puts every kickoff out of the end zone. Peyton Woodring, after he struggled in the first 2 or 3 games of the season, hasn't hardly missed. And then Georgia has not allowed a punt return yard this year. Not 1 yard.
Insane.
Wow.
I mean,
Kirby said in his press conference he's never heard of, he's heard of, negative yards, but he has never heard of anybody ever to have. Now, I don't even think that they have, literally no punt returns against Georgia's punt team. No. Unbelievable. So, very impressive.
Last thing I'll say against Tennessee, bad for Tennessee. They need to fix their field and their sidelines. The field looked better this time, but I don't know what they put on their sidelines, but it looks like glass. Their guys were sliding around. Carson Beck almost tore his ACL over there. Just run out of bounds. Their sidelines are terrible. So, I need them to fix that crap too.
That's fair. I think we're gonna go ahead and get into this Georgia Tech, Tech rivalry here. I want you guys to talk about some stories from Tech, like just talk about the rivalry. Why is there so much hate with Tech? I know, Russ, you've talked about it a little bit, and Kirby talked about it in his press conference this week. It's it's the battle for basically the state championship college football. But tell me from you guys' opinions, why is there so much hate in this rivalry?
Well, for me, is you have to see these guys all the time. I mean, you played with a lot of them. You played against a lot of them in high school, and you do not want to lose to your in-state rival. We know who's the football school. They're the technical college. So we can't allow a technical college to beat us. And I don't think they would ever, while Kirby is here, beat us on a consistent basis. Will they, win one here and there? They may. I think Britt Keys is doing a good job. But as long as Kirby is continue to recruit the way that he's recruiting, they're still going to be the step brothers up the road. So it's just, if you lose to them right now, they're so annoying that you can't stand it. I hate when we play them in Athens because I hate when they just tear our hedges up. I despise when we lose to them in Athens, tearing our field up. That makes me just cringe. And we supposed to win. And if they win, then it's their Super Bowl. So we can't give them a glimpse of hope ever that they will beat us. And I think with Coach Rick, out of the 15 years, I think he only lost 3 times, I think, to Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And those 3 times was just crazy. And I have a first cousin who went to Georgia Tech, and I don't understand what his deal was going to Georgia Tech, but he was always about Georgia Tech as a kid, and he ended up going there. So it's kind of a little family rivalry for me right now.
Well, there's a lot of that. Terrence is exactly right. But Georgia fans always have teams that they dislike the most. They have teams they want to beat the most. And that can vary based on how you grew up, what your experience has been as a Georgia fan. But almost universally as a Georgia fan, the team you want to lose to the least is Georgia Tech, for all the reasons Terrence just said. They are the little brother to us, and we cannot allow them to beat us. As far as what's on the line this week, by the way, Georgia can lose 1 game and still make the playoffs. They can't lose 2 games and make the playoffs. So you got to know that. We've got to beat Tech to stay in the playoffs, and that's a ton to be able to play for, no doubt about it. So beating Tech is huge. You better not lose to Tech because of bragging rights for a full year. Right now, we're not competing with Tech for recruits. We're not competing with Tech for resources. We're not competing with Tech in a lot of ways. But you mess around and lose to those nerds and see how bad it becomes. You do not lose to Tech. That's a bottom line. John Eason told me, T, I said this earlier. Coach Eason told me, Tanner, this the SEC. This is a bottom line business, son. That's what it is. It's a bottom line business. You can't lose to Tech. Bottom line.
All right. Well, there it is. There's the hate towards Tech. I guess let's preview this matchup a little bit. Tech seems to be trending upward. I don't know if it's just me, but I know, Russ, you say it's like I said earlier in the year, I said Vanderbilt looks like they're trending upward. You're like, it's still Vandy. Is Tech? Tech, they have a couple of our guys. They took Dom Lovett. We talked about Dom Lovett, or not Dom Lovett, Dominic Blaylock and Brett Seither. They transferred over there.
Buster Faulkner is calling plays for him now.
That's right. Coach Faulkner. So just kind of talk about, are they kind of trending upward?
I mean, they are trending upward. That the answer to that is yes, but it's because of where they came from, right? They're coming out of the Paul Johnson era, and Paul Johnson was a tough guy to play against. I mean, his system was hard to prepare for, and it was you didn't look forward to that game. But the problem with that was they cannot recruit NFL players to play in that system, NFL caliber players, because as offensive linemen, you don't get in a 4-point sets and cut people ever play in the NFL. So you can't get big nasties there. You can't get receivers that want to catch the ball there, although they somehow got a good receiver every few years. I don't know how they did that. But they just couldn't recruit at a high enough level. And the gap between Georgia and Tech for talent got too wide with Paul Johnson there. They brought in Jeff Collins. It didn't work. It was a bad deal. The whole way around just never worked. Brent Key seems to be the right guy for them. They look like a different team. Haynes King is playing well at quarterback for them. They've got some pieces, but they ain't got enough horses in the barn to run with Georgia right now.
I agree. Jahmyr Gibbs, wasn't he at Tech before he transferred to Alabama?
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
That's insane.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I agree with Russ there that I think they are trending because they was at the bottom. I think just talk about Paul Johnson. A lot of his success came from Chan Gailey players, with Bebe Thomas, Morgan Burnett, Cap's little brother, So that whole crew that he won the Orange Bowl with, those was recruited by Chan Gailey. So he did have success with those guys who was already there, but once those guys cycled out, it was hard for him to really get the top athletes, especially, Russ, you have to win on the offensive line and defensive line, and they was not getting those type of players to compete year in and year out. Yes, they will have a one-off because that triple option is just so hard to scout for. Is just different. And Paul Johnson was the godfather of the triple option. So when Jeff Collins came, there was a lot of turnover that he just couldn't work with. It was a lot of players that just would not fit the scheme that he wanted. The offensive line was too small. Paul Johnson did not want a 330-pound offensive lineman. He wanted 280 so they can move and cut block. So just the players that they had just didn't fit what Jeff Collins wanted to do. And if you just watch them play last year, they just played tougher and harder for Brent Keys. And if you watch them play this year, even though, probably don't indicate it, but they are trending upward. They are playing hard. I think they will come in and compete. They do have a freshman receiver that I watched play in high school named Eric Singleton. Is a little small, fast. He can run. Jitterbug that's making plays. And I love Don Blaylock. He scored a touchdown last week. So they're trending in the right direction. I think the transfer portal is probably going to be really nice to them. I don't know, we won't compete for high school players. But the thing about it that bothers me is Georgia Tech, Georgia State, y'all should be really eating off the state of Georgia right now, because when me and Russ was in high school, it was build a wall around the state and let's take the top 15 players in the state of Georgia. But now Kirby has built a wall around the United States, around the world. He's going to get the best players. I mean, you just look at, Kendall Milton is from California. We have Nate Frazier, who's coming in from California this year. So, Dylan Raiola he's coming from Arizona.
Yeah.
So
Dylan Bell is from Texas.
Yeah.
Dylan Bell is from Texas. Ra Thomas, Dom Lovett. Like those building the wall around the state anymore is not Kirby's recruiting tactics anymore. So there's a lot of really good players in the state of Georgia. So if I'm Georgia Tech and Georgia State, I'm going to get the top players out of Georgia that Georgia do not want. And they probably still won't beat us, but they will be competitive in the ACC. And I think Georgia State is in the Sun Belt and Georgia Southern along with those guys. So they are trending upward. Brent Keys has really have done a good job, and Buss have done a really good job. They're throwing the heck out of the football right now.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm looking forward to going and beating them over there at a night game. They should lose for the name of their stadium, Hyundai Field. They should lose just for that, if nothing else. But
right,
what do I know?
Yeah. I mean, everyone feeling pretty confident about this weekend. Do we got anyone got score predictions they want to talk about? Any?
What the line's got to be like 24-25? I mean, what's the line?
I think it. Yeah. Well, we're sitting right here, so I'll check it real quick.
That's one thing that I haven't done in a while, because last time I gave score prediction, we lost. So I don't do score positions.
Hard to do.
All right. Say,
Lord, man.
Hey, what I say is we're going to win by more than 1 point. That's all I care about. It could be 100-99. As long as we win the game, that's all I care about.
There you go. We'll take it. We'll take it for sure. So the spread is. It opened at -23, favoring Georgia. Now it's -24. So people are betting the over on that, or they're betting for Georgia cover.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and we should, right? I mean, it's college football. It's 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. In some cases now with COVID, 27-year-old guys playing. So you got to know, like, you can't predict that whatever we think is going to happen doesn't happen so often. But yeah, you should feel very confident as a Georgia fan right now, because we have a lot better player, especially on the lines of scrimmage. And that's where games are still won and lost in college football.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of score predictions in here, a lot of 40s. A lot of Dawgs by
42-30. Everybody was guessing like 42-10 to 42-14. Like every score prediction I see, that's the most. If you did a common denominator, that's what it comes down to. So
We got Tim Noble's 45-14 Dogs on top. So yeah, Georgia fans say we're fairly confident going against Tech, but only time will tell. Obviously, this is it's rivalry week. It's hate week, pretty much. So a lot of big rivalries. Ohio State and Michigan is this upcoming weekend. That's going to be a crazy game. That's going to shake up the college football playoffs, as well as another big one is the Iron Bowl, Bama and Auburn, and that's pretty sure that's
at Auburn,
at Jordan Hare.
Is that Auburn?
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun game to watch.
I will give Michigan credit. They have done something this year that I did not think is possible. They have made people like Ohio State more than they like Michigan. I didn't know that a team could be Georgia fans could dislike anybody more than we dislike Ohio State, but Michigan's done that, man. Like, my wife almost yelled at an old guy in Hobby Lobby today because he had a Michigan sweatshirt on. She said she wanted to yell like, "Cheaters never win." I was like, well, they kind of do. They're smoking people this year. Yeah. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting to watch. I think the biggest thing to look at as far as college football this week is Florida State, man. Like, you hate it for them. Like, Jordan Travis, terrible injury on that ankle down there, and he's been a guy, man, who has he's been a dude for them. And Florida State looked good, man. Like, they looked really good. They were fast tracking towards the playoffs. So, what happens with that team now? They play Florida this weekend to finish their season. So, I actually hate it for Florida State. People like me and Terrence, who are college football fans in the 90s, probably have a little bit of I've got a special place in my heart for Florida State.
I do.
They were fun to watch.
Yeah.
But,
so Coach Tomlin went to and played at Florida State, right? So
yeah,
we would watch before every game in high school religiously. The 93-94 national championship season. I thought I was Charlie Ward in high school. That was my favorite. That was my favorite player, along with Tommy Frazier. And we would watch that highlight tape before every game. And I tell people this all the time: college football is better when Florida State is one of the top teams in the country.
Yep. All right, Bobby. Let's hit Terrence with some rapid fires right here to finish up.
Let's go.
We're getting close to the end. He kind of started with it, so I'll go one, you go one. Can we do that?
We'll do. Right. You want to? If you want to start it off, go ahead.
All right, Terrence. Who's the best player you ever played against? It can be any level of football. Best player you ever played against?
Probably Lito Shepherd.
Florida.
Yep.
Who was? Let me ask this question: who was the most talented teammate you ever played with?
Probably Russ will remember this name, Jesse Miller, from my high school, who went to Georgia with me. People say Takeo is the best player they ever saw. Jesse had more talent than Takeo. So Jesse Miller, my high school teammate, guy I grew up with from the Sandbox. He went to Georgia with us as well. Probably the most talented guy that I've seen with my two eyes.
If you could pick one college stadium to play a game in, not Sanford, for one game, where do you want to go play?
Jordan Hare.
Ooh, I like it. Wow. That's a whole place to play.
Yeah.
One more. You get one more, I get one more, Bobby.
All right. What is your greatest accomplishment at Georgia? I have a feeling I know what the answer will be, but
greatest accomplishment. It's not just mine. Winning that 2002 SEC championship and knocking the lid off for 20 years, and now seeing what the program has propelled to. I think that 2002 team had a lot to do with it. So I just think winning that SEC championship, going to win the Sugar Bowl, probably, and it's not just me, it's the team accomplishment, was probably that.
All right.
Who is faster in their prime, you or your brother Robert?
Clock-wise, he's been clocked faster than me, but I'm not going to give it to him. I think in our I'm going to give it to Rob. Rob was what people don't understand about Robert is how many players in Georgia history could be an all-SEC corner, then switch over to be an all-SEC running back. So Robert was a heck of an athlete that I don't think he get the credit for as he should.
Why remind me, because I remember watching it. Why did he move? Because there were injuries, right? And he'd been playing DB.
So he's playing DB, and they just had a rash of injuries. Terrell Davis, just the whole running back core was injured, And Coach Golf, I can't remember which coach told Coach Golf that, Robert, your best running back is playing corner right here. So Coach Golf made the switch in the spring of his junior year. Then his first game, we all know, against South Carolina, he went out and scored 5 touchdowns.
Adam W was there in the comments talking about that. He literally said that's crazy.
Yeah,
I remember watching it, man, like it was yesterday. And I said earlier I didn't like Washington County, but because I had family that went there, I grew up loving to watch Washington County play. I mean, one of the best games I ever saw in my life was I saw Washington County play Mary Persons. And maybe Andre Zellner, was that the guy who was there? I don't know.
Pepe Zellner.
Pepe Zellner, yeah. Oh my God, there were some dudes on that field. So that was fun to watch.
Hey Russ, I'm gonna tell you this: you might not like us, but if you'd have came, you'd have got you some state championships.
For the record, in my senior year 2000, we played Washington County. And we beat them 7-6. I mean, it was a barn burner. And to tell you how
that's an Iowa State score right there.
How petty it was. There was somebody from Johnson County that took out a billboard beside the dairy lane that had Trojan 7, Golden Hawk 6. They left it up for 6 months, and people got mad about it. So yeah.
And you could tell wasn't no Edwards boys on that team scoring 6 points.
All right, to round the show out, Russ, we got to talk about some barbecue. Terrence, have you ever had the pleasure of eating any of Russ Tanner's barbecue, or have you gone to eat with him at a barbecue restaurant?
I have not, and that is a travesty.
Well, we can make that happen. We can hook that up here soon.
You guys have to get that in. But Thanksgiving's tomorrow. Russ, what are you cooking for Thanksgiving? Are you smoking anything? Are you smoking a turkey? I mean, what do we got?
I put this on my Facebook earlier, and it's true. Like, everybody should go right now and take their turkey out of the freezer and give it enough time to thaw so you could throw it away and go buy some steaks. Like, that's the best plan for turkey for tomorrow. I got a brisket on the smoker right now back at the house. I got to get off this show and go check on my brisket. And I will cook. I like vegetables, so I'm gonna cook some turkey. So we'll have turkey to go along with our other vegetables before we eat the beef. But yeah. Man, Thanksgiving's good. You got to go up there. You got to have stuffing. You got to have mac and cheese.
Amen.
You got to have sweet potato souffle. And I like a little green bean, something or another on there too. So that's where I'm at.
Russ, you're from Johnson County. We don't say stuffing. It's dressing.
Dressing. You're right. You're exactly right.
Johnson County, it's dressing, not stuffing. You've been living out of. You need to go back to Johnson County for a few days.
You're right. Hey, we go on Friday. I guarantee you there ain't no stuffing at my nana's house. I promise you that.
It's not. Guarantee it's dressing.
Thank you. You are. I actually don't like giving little skinny guys credit for anything food wise, but Terrence is exactly right. Apology to all my South Georgia people.
Terrence, what are some staples in your household for Thanksgiving?
We usually just go to my mother-in-law house, and I go and just don't do anything. Kick back and allow them to do everything and watch some NFL football.
There you go. Good stuff.
Right.
Sweet.
Well,
Terrence, thank you for coming on. Russ, got anything else to say?
Hey, man. I appreciate one of the greatest in the history of the University of Georgia, Terrence Edwards, Washington County, jumping on here with us. I appreciate it. He's a brother from the Dawg brotherhood that we're part of. It's special to have guys like Terrence, who we only played together 2 or 3 years, but I can send him one message, ask him to jump on. He's like, absolutely. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate that. Appreciate Bobby setting it on. I love Thanksgiving, and go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Happy Thanksgiving. Dogs. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next week on the Dawgs and Hawgs show. See you guys. Go Dogs.
Have a good one. Go Dogs.